President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi urged on Friday the adopting of an advanced engineering and construction plan while establishing the Shinzo Abe axis east of Cairo due to its major significance. President al-Sisi's remarks came as he inspected the workflow of building works at new roads and axes under construction in the capital. In September last year, the president ordered that a new road linking Al-Shahid axis and the Suez Road and the Ring Road be named after Shinzo Abe, Japan's longest-serving prime minister. The decision came a month after Abe announced his resignation for health reasons. During his weekly tour on Friday, President al-Sisi urged that the 8-kilometer-long axis provides all services required for vehicles. The president highlighted the significance of Shinzo Abe axis in organizing traffic in eastern Cairo region and linking eastern districts with New Cairo and the new administrative capital. During his tour, the president was briefed on development of the project to improve road and bridges network in Nasr City, along with some districts in the 5th settlement. The president urged the adherence to a high-speed rate of finishing the road projects in order for the new road and access network in eastern Cairo to be entirely completed. The new road network linking eastern Cairo with areas at Greater Cairo and new cities would cause significant qualitative progress to the smooth and fast flow of the citizens.
Welcome back. You're still watching the daily debate, and those were the presidential activities of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi in the field of construction and the development of infrastructure in different places around Cairo, including the 5th settlement and the 10th district of Nasr City. All of those places and all of those districts located at eastern Cairo. We will be shedding more light, of course, with our dear guest, Dr. Waleed Hegazy, on those activities, as well as on the latest amendments to the real estate registry law that we have seen in the past week and will be affecting the Egyptian citizens positively in the near future. We will be having more information in the upcoming report about those amendments, so stay tuned.
Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli has ordered the formation of a ministerial committee to facilitate the procedures required for registering real estate. In a cabinet statement, the Prime Minister said the committee will include ministries of justice, finance, and local development. Madbouli added that the state worked to encourage citizens to register their real estate with the aim of securing their properties, and therefore the registration procedures should be facilitated. Madbouli has also ordered that the procedures and the objective of registration be explained to citizens so as not to allow the spread of rumors and false information regarding this issue. According to amendments to the real estate registry law that were approved last August, new fees will be required to register properties at real estate registry offices starting 6th of March. On Monday, Minister of Justice Omar Marwan said that the registration fees range from 500 Egyptian pounds to 2,000 Egyptian pounds, which is the maximum fee for properties exceeding 300 meters, as well as 2.5% of the property's value under the real estate disposal tax.
As we have seen more information and heard more information in the past report about the amendments, the latest amendments to the real estate registry law in Egypt, and how those amendments will be affecting the Egyptian citizens in the near future. Tonight I'm honored to be having with me in the studio Dr. Waleed Hegazy, the legal expert. Dr. Waleed, thank you very much for being with us tonight on the Daily Debate. And of course, you will be shedding more light on different aspects of the amendments to the law and the presidential activities as well. We did see President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi having a tour as usual on Friday, but in terms or in the field of construction and development, how do you see the achievements of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, or the achievements that took place under his tenure in the field of legislation and amending laws?
Well, thank you for having me. I think that the government has made it very clear now for a sustainable period of time,
yes,
that its objective is to really revisit all the laws and regulations that have been neglected for a very long time, yes. And this neglection caused and still causes a lot of difficulties when you try to do economic progress, when you're trying to move the economy forward, when you try to focus on for example, the infrastructure and economic projects that the government is trying to achieve.
Yes.
So one of them is, as you know, the notary public law, sometimes also referred to as the real estate registry law. This law was issued in 1948. Very few amendments have taken place since that date. It's law number 114 of 1948, and now really a long-awaited amendment was to try to put an end and a stop to what we call is the real estate waste that the Egyptian economy is having.
Yes.
And by the way, we're not the only country that faced this dilemma. The dilemma is basically that because of the difficulties and maybe the cost of notary registration of properties, people tend to circumvent the law and find other ways, other alternatives. However, those alternatives are not really fully recognized under the law, and they don't give 100% value to your property.
Yes.
So when you try, for example, you have a property but it's not registered, but you have what's called the signature verification judgment in your favor, saying that the seller has, signed that sale agreement to you. The bank, for example, wouldn't accept this if you need a loan and you need to mortgage your property, or you need to provide your property as a collateral to your loan. So the banks don't really recognize this. So it is, this is what's called real estate waste.
Yes.
All of the properties that we have in Egypt must be registered, must be part of the economy, so they can be guaranteed by the banks, it can be used as collateral by the banks, and they can become part of the economy. So that's what the law is trying to achieve.
That's in the benefit of the citizens.
Absolutely.
Why do you think it is surrounded by rumors now?
Because there's so many. Obviously, the law was the amendment was issued in last year in September 2020, but one of the requirements was to issue what is called executive regulations to enforce the amendment.
Yes.
And that executive regulation number 21 of January 2021 was issued by the Minister of Justice to clarify how this amendment will be implemented. And it caused a lot of debates on how it will be implemented. And as you know, the latest now is that the Parliament has decided to revisit the law and to push the enforcement day, which was March 4th, I think, or 6th, to push it until the end of the year. And I think it's a positive thing to do that, because people need to get really familiar and acquainted. And as you say, rumors do not help in these situations.
Yes.
You need to clarify first. And that's probably what is going to happen during this year, to clarify for the people who is going to be affected, how we can benefit from the law, and that there's nothing scary about the law.
Do you think we need more awareness about this law and the benefits of those amendments for the benefit of the citizen, for the economy of
Absolutely.
Egypt, for the investments of Egypt? As you mentioned, even if I am a citizen and I want to have a loan from the bank, this wouldn't be accepted if those amendments wouldn't have been applied in Egypt. How do you think we should be having an awareness campaign for the citizens to be accepting it more easily?
Yeah, or even if you are a company, for example, and you have a land, a property, and you want to make sure that this property is accounted for as part of your capital. I mean, and it's not registered. It's difficult to do that.
Yes.
So it touches all, and also, you know, recently the government has amended the nationality and the residency law to allow foreigners in Egypt who own property over $100,000 to have a free residency in Egypt.
Yes.
But one condition is that this property must be registered. So obviously those investors won't be able to benefit or to easily find a registered property in order to benefit from this law. I think the government now has a chance with the parliament to try to introduce public awareness sessions through the media, as we do right now, and through other channels, to raise the public awareness of why you need your property to be registered. There's so much corruption and problems relating to properties which people have suffered from because their properties are not registered.
Yes.
And you have multiple sales of the same property happening, you know, and you find like 3-4 people owning the same property at the same time, and conflicting interests. So that will end once you know that every property is registered, and all these properties will come into the economy, become part of the economy. Egypt is one of the richest countries when it comes to real estate. An example is Brazil, another country that had this problem 10 or 15 years ago, and they brought everyone again by amending their notary public laws and making it easier for people to achieve the real estate registration objective. So that's the objective of the law, and we need to make sure that that is the goal and that is performed through the law. It's not the opposite. So we want to make sure that people becomes easier for them to register their properties, and therefore the government can take its rights. The government would be able to see who is the real owner and put, you know, obligations or give rights and obligations to those owners.
And even an economic benefit for the citizens on the long run. On the other hand, Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli stated that 40 million buildings or apartments are not registered. We have 40 million unregistered units here in Egypt. How do you see the negative impact of such a situation?
As I said, this is what's called real estate waste. So, you know, these properties, their people are not fully benefiting from their ownership rights. Okay, if they try to sell, it's undervalued because it's not fully registered. Because, you know, obviously the buyer is interested in buying a property that is protected by the law. So when you sell a property, you're selling it under its value because it's not registered. So this is waste. You won't be able to use it if you have a commercial property and you want to use it in your business to get credit line or a loan. You won't be able to do that. So, and 40 million, it's really underestimated. I think it's even much bigger than that. Yeah, it's only the very old properties in Egypt that have been registered because, you know, that was it was much easier in the past. But for the last 50 years or 60 years, people really, the common route was not the real estate registration, was to go around and have this, you know, what we call the validation ruling of your ownership, and to take that and to try to register it as a ruling. So I think it is a waste, and the government needs to be very smart to try to bring in everyone to believe that this is in the best interest of the people.
Minister of Justice Omar Marwan stated in the past week that you wouldn't be able to register your unit, or if you don't want to register your unit, you should be knowing that you will be dealing with the government in two cases. One of them is to be selling your property. That is one case. The other is to be, if you want to have electricity in your unit, water facilities in your unit. Yes.
In general.
So those are the only two cases that you have to register your unit for the benefit of yourself. How do you see those statements?
Yeah, those are exceptions. I mean, obviously the main objective is to make people register their properties. So, but the minister here is trying to say, if you are living in an apartment and you already have your utilities and everything is fine, and you don't intend to sell your properties, then this law is not going to affect you. And that was one of your questions in the introduction, how the law affects everyone.
But
so the law is going to affect only those who intend to sell.
Me on the long term?
Yes, on the long term.
In the upcoming years?
Yes, if you plan to sell your property, definitely you won't be able to sell it for real value. It's real value. Because everyone else will be registered, so you will have an incentive
so I could
to
be
register.
Losing money as
exactly.
Well.
So you will probably, and you can I think what will happen is that you will charge this to the price of the land or the property when you sell it, right? You paid in the registration X amount, so you register. So that is probably going to raise a little bit the value of the properties, but for the benefit of the owner. And I think that's probably one of the issues that the parliament now is going to address, to try to address those people who already been living in their in their homes, and these are their first properties or whatever, and only properties. How they could probably be excluded in a way, so that we can register their properties at the same time, but maybe at a lower cost. I think that's the discussion that's taking, or part of the discussion that's taking
place. So what are
now.
these steps now for a real estate owner, for a unit owner, for a property owner that I, as an Egyptian citizen, I want to be registering my unit? What are the steps that I should be following?
You see, we always give advice to our clients that the best approach, to protect your property is to register it. End of discussion. That's the best way to do it. It's not through the judgment. It's not through having a signature verification lawsuit or whatever. If you can afford it, the best way is to go to the registry, public registry, and get what is called a temporary file number by submitting your documents, submitting proof of your ownership, and if it is accepted, then within a month you will be able to get a final file number, and then you go through the process of continuing the registration of your property. That is going to be changed, hopefully, to be easier with the law. For example, the law puts now a maximum number of days for the judge to issue a judgment in case of a conflict over, after you've already got the temporary number, and assuming that there's a person objecting to your ownership, the judge has 7 days to basically settle this objection and issue a judgment. So it's supposed to facilitate and expedite the process of your registration.
As you've mentioned, Doctor, that you advise the citizens to be registering if you can afford it.
Absolutely.
Speaking of the fees now, because a lot of people in Egypt are talking about the fees and how much they would be calculated according to every unit and every property and every real estate that I own or anyone owns in the country. How can anyone be calculating the fees that he should be paying in the near future according to those amendments?
Well, under the new law, which now has been basically postponed, its enforcement postponed, there was a maximum amount or a limit or a cap on the registration fee of £2,000. Not sure if how this number is going to change or not, but one of the biggest costs that you need to calculate right now, and as things stand right now, assuming that this law has not been enforced yet until the end of the year, is the 2.5%, which is the Real Estate Act tax, which you need to pay. Whenever you sell something, right, sell a property, you need to pay 2.5% to the government. So that if they say, assuming the property is £1 million, so that's going to be 25, no, it's going to be about 50,000 EGP, right? So you need to calculate this amount as 2.5%. Let's make sure our calculation is right. A million, 20% is 50. No, it's about 5,000 or 7,000 pounds for each million. So you need to make sure you pay this and you provide proof of this payment to the public registry in order to continue the process.
Could this be decreasing to 1%?
Yes, that's what we heard from the head of the legislative committee, housing committee in the parliament, who suggested, but this is a mere suggestion, that a 1% is more acceptable and more affordable for people. To me, really, what's important is to make sure we gather all these fees and make them as easy and transparent as possible, and to be almost like a one-stop shop. And you go and pay this to the notary public and get proof that you made this payment, and that should be enough for you to continue your registration, instead of having for example the Public Survey Authority, Hayat al-Masaha, there's a fee for it. There is also the Syndicate of Lawyers, unfortunately, we take a fee as well. So instead of having all these different fees, I suggest that your government issues one fee for everything, and that in that fee, then everything is calculated and it's transparent and clear.
It's good for the economy, it's good for the investments, good for the Egyptian citizens as well. But how do you see this affecting right now the market of buying and selling real estate?
Well, it made really a lot of people concerned now that they want to wait to see how the law is going to affect the prices. Some people said, well, this is going to raise the prices of the registered properties. So if you have a registered property now and you already paid whatever money in the past, you are your property is going to be increased in value. Now that things have now been postponed to the end of the year, I think the market is going to continue as it is right now. People will look for properties that are clear from the law. For example, properties that are sold by companies. You don't need to provide this 2.5% tax certificate, because companies, as a seller, as owners, they pay the taxes separately under their corporate tax. So, unlike individuals. But if you're buying from an individual, then you need to get a certificate that the seller has paid the 2.5%. I need to agree with, that's an advice for our audience, is that they need to make sure, if you're selling a property, you need to make sure that the seller gets you the certificate, because it's an obligation on the seller, not on the buyer, to get a certificate that he has paid the 2.5% tax.
Does this mean that for the investors and for the potential investments here in Egypt, excuse me, it would be safer for them to be pumping more money in this market and in this sector in Egypt now?
Absolutely. Once we settle the issue of this law, I think would be for the benefit of everyone. If we find this magical formula where it makes it very clear to everyone, and we are able to bring in everyone to register their properties, and that's the objective really, the real estate market in Egypt will benefit tremendously. There are a lot of people who see this market, as ever growing. It's a very stable market. There's a lot of demand. It's a growing, population, and it's a big country with really high value properties. So I think it will be very good for investments, because you're protecting investors from cheating and from corruption by making things clear how you protect your property by following certain steps, which this law is trying to do.
As I've mentioned, a lot of rumors were circulated about the amendments to the real estate registry law. We will be having the reaction of the government, the reaction of the cabinet to the rumors that were circulated in the past few days about the amendments and how they would be affecting the citizens and the economy negatively in the future. The reaction of the cabinet in the upcoming report. So let's see it.
The cabinet has refuted social media claims that it would expropriate housing units from their owners if they are not registered in the notary offices in accordance with the new amendment to the law. The Cabinet's Media Center released a statement this week saying that it had contacted the Justice Ministry, who completely denied the rumors. The Justice Ministry explained that the new legislative amendment to the Real Estate Registration and Notary Authorities Law does not include expropriation of any housing units from their owners. The Cabinet statement clarified that the new amendment stipulates that in the event of selling a housing unit, the buyer must first register it at the Real Estate Registry, which enables the buyer, after completing the registration, to transfer the property. The statement appealed to all media outlets and social media users to investigate the accuracy and objectivity behind their claims. According to the statement, property owners wishing to sell their units must follow the following steps. Go to the notary office, submit the original preliminary sale contract of the unit, bring a certificate from the City Council to confirm that the property has no building violations, submit an application for registration with the Real Estate Registry attached with an assessment of the real estate tax, obtain final review and signature from the appropriate employee to accept declaration of the contract. The contract will be signed by both parties and issued on blue paper inside the registration office.
Welcome back. So in the first part of the episode, we've mentioned the fees that the Egyptian citizen or the company will be having to pay in those amendments of the registry or the real estate registry law. And we will be discussing now the steps, as we've mentioned, the steps that should be taken by any citizen to be registering his or her unit or property. On the other hand, the main point here that we've listened to in the past report is that no properties would be confiscated. That
Absolutely.
was one of the main rumors that we have heard in the past few days. How would you see this rumor in the first place and the reaction of the cabinet to be refuting it?
Yeah, I mean, it's really a strange rumor because, I mean, but that's not really unexpected and uncommon in Egypt. You always, get these kind of rumors which don't make any logical sense, and people, if are not aware and don't have legal knowledge and they're not really familiar with the subject, they can accept those, unfortunately, those rumors, but they have no basis in the law. As I said, the law really did not say anything about expropriation at all. We say it's a law, but it's a decision amending the law. The amendment didn't really have anything relating to expropriation of properties. It adds a way for people to register their properties. Article 35, the original Article 35 talked about how you can register your property if you obtained a judgment in your favor that the contract is valid and enforceable. How you take this contract and go to the registry public and start the process. Article 35 bis, which is the new article, which amended the existing law, basically said that how you could do this, how the steps need to be further facilitated, that you submit this judgment and this ruling, and the ruling and you get a temporary file number from the notary public. Within 1 month, the notary public must respond to this file number and give you a final number, unless someone objected to the contract or to the ruling,
Yes.
okay, to your ownership. In that case, the file will be referred to a court, and the court must issue its ruling within 7 days. So really, it's all about expedition and really facilitation of the process. So nothing really about at all expropriation of properties. The only thing that people may have misinterpreted the law is that, as you mentioned, the utilities. When you dealing with utilities, public utilities, they will not honor anything that is not registered. You do not honor your contract unless it is registered. So that's probably the issue that people said, okay, so if I can't get electricity or water to my property, then this is almost like the government is taking the property away from me. But that's not true, because you have basically have a way, which is you go and register your property. And now fixing a few things in the law, hopefully that will be possible, and that's really the objective. The government, I think, doesn't need or doesn't want people to suffer, right? The government wants to make sure, because that was the strategy. Strategy is to bring all Egyptian properties to the surface of the market, okay? Because right now they're behind the scene. You can't see them.
Yes.
Those properties, everyone has a contract with someone, and has a validation case, a lawsuit, or a judgment in his favor, and thinks that his property is protected. And probably that's not true. So we want to make sure that we can see all the properties in Egypt. They become part of the economy, part of the business market, part of the banking sector. So and everyone will benefit from that. Obviously, we become much richer as an economy. Imagine all these properties become part of the ownership of the government, because obviously also the government owns some of those properties, and also of the citizens.
Speaking of the real estate laws here in Egypt, how do you see the possible future amendments and the possible new laws altogether that will be making things better here in the market?
I think the public registration is one of the most difficult issues to tackle, and that's why probably the government decided to go first with that.
Yes.
Also, the violation, the building violation, the building permits, and how you settle your violations. This law was, I think, was very good, and it did bring a lot of people to the surface and had them settle their violations and pay whatever fines they had to pay. I think a continuation of this amendment, plus the public registration or notary public registration process, if we can really make it easy for people to register their properties, and at the same time make sure that no one can make the same violations the old way, they use just to violate the building rules, and then be able to get utilities, electricity, water, telephone, and everything, and then you find a building in the middle of the road that has no meaning whatsoever,
yes,
and has electricity from the government, and that can't really continue, right? So the government is going in the right direction, absolutely, but tackling very difficult and very challenging issues and questions, which is something we should really thank the government for. I know that might not be very popular with some people. May think that this is too much to say, but really...
It's like tackling the mentality and tackling the mindset at the same time, because you mentioned, Doctor, that this law has been here in Egypt for the past 73 years, or 75 years.
1946.
Yes, so that's a lot of years that have gone by, and no one took notice of it, yes.
Exactly, and
it has become a mindset.
Exactly, and we're not really working with the law, working against the law. We've been for 70 years or 60 years working around the law.
And against
so the government said, okay,
as well.
we want to bring you to work with the law. So we want to fix the law to see why you're not coming to this regular route, and you're taking the more challenging route, which doesn't benefit you and doesn't benefit the economy, and we try to fix it. Same thing with the violations. We see, okay, so we want to put an end to this, so we bring everyone, give them a chance to settle their violations, but after that date, you can't settle. You can't, because we as an economy and as
it's
people,
like an opportunity.
We won't really accept those violations anymore. Now we have new cities, okay, so and those new cities have definitely the most modern, most updated building rules, and regulations. You can't be doing that and at the same time allowing people to destroy what's left, in the old cities.
The building violations in the past 6 months or in the past year, how did you see such a decision by the cabinet, by the government, to be tackling this important subject here in Egypt and this important problem in this field?
I think, as I said, it's a brave act by the government to try to tackle things that have not moved for many, many years, and they're not very popular. Don't take me wrong. People do not accept things like that. People want things to continue the same way. We as humans, we don't like changes. Like we adapt to something and we really resist.
Get used to it.
Yeah, we resist any change, even if the change is in our favor, right? And because of the rumors and everything, but people, when we found out, I have a lot of friends and a lot of clients who decided, well, found out we have an opportunity now to settle our violations. Maybe the government will accept part of the violations and settle them, and will pay fines for them, and others will, they won't. But at least I now have, a peace of mind that my property is settled and it has no violations, and the government cannot fine me anymore, right?
What is the main problem or the main system when it comes for the government to be fining someone for building violations? What is the main system that the cabinet or the government is going through, of course, with the help of the Ministry of Interior?
Yeah, obviously there is the building law, and it's a new law, and you have to follow those rules. Whenever you're building a new building, you have to have a permit. In order to get this permit, they won't give you the permit.
The new buildings that will be built or the older ones that were already built?
No, I thought you were asking about, with respect to the future. But if
you're talking
about the existing violations, the government has already sent notices to those violators and told them that you have
is it easier to bring the building down?
It's not easy, of course, but it happened. Of course, it happened with the help of the police department and everything, because a lot of people were like, basically defying the government. It's like, you can't do anything about it. It's a high-rising building, and we all, drive in Egypt and see those buildings that obviously violated every, building rules that exist on earth, not just in Egypt, and they existed for many years. So when you see those destroyed, I feel better. I feel that there is a government. There's someone watching,
but does the
and
same
someone
system,
is paying attention.
But does the same system apply to every governorate?
Yes, it's the same. That was general on all, but they
with
gave
the height of the building, with the
depending because every street and every district has its own rules. Like Maadi is different than Muqattam, is different than
so there
downtown.
is a system for every governorate and for every neighborhood as well.
Yes, yes, and for
we
every
just need
street.
to apply.
Exactly. So if you build like a floor or a story without a permit, they will not destroy the whole building. They will just destroy that extra story that you built without a permit.
So those efforts in the past year or two in different fields, or more specifically tonight in the field of infrastructure, on the field of real estate and the violations of and the violations of buildings, when can we be reaping the fruits of those decisions?
When they are accepted by the majority of the people. Not everyone is going to accept everything, right?
Yes.
But at least accepted by the majority of the population, the citizens. You will start seeing people going and taking actions that go in the same direction of where the government or the strategy of the government. I think once we do that, we'll all reap the benefits. As we already have seen, some of the, for example, some of the changes that we all resisted and thought, was difficult to take at the time. For example, the devaluation of the Egyptian pound. A lot of people, thought that, this is not very popular, it's not good for the economy. But at the same time, it was a brave decision, because you can't really continue in a country, in an economy, or bring investments where you don't have a price for your pound, right? You have two prices. You have the black market and you have the blue market.
The whole economic reform program was the right decision, especially we can see it now against the coronavirus pandemic, which hit all over the world, not just in Egypt.
Yes, exactly. And you see the Egyptian economy be able to withstand the coronavirus impact much better than at least surrounding economies.
Yes.
We're much different than Europe, of course, so it's unfair to compare. But at least, we didn't see our economy collapse. We continue to produce, we continue to export, we continue to build. So I think what I want to say is that those challenging decisions in the past were not very popular, but we now we're reaping the benefits of that, because after the devaluation, let's say a year after that, 6 months, a year, things have settled. Investors knew what's the price of the Egyptian pound, knew that if they invest in the economy, they will be able to take their investments and repatriate their profits back at a certain value in their mind. So I think you can't run an economy with 2 or 3 different prices of your currency, right? So these are not very popular actions by the government, but must be taken.
According to the statements of Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, he said that this decision of the amending of the real estate registry law would be eliminating the slums, would be helping in eliminating the slums. And of course, as we did see the slums being replaced by al-asmarat, by different places in Alexandria, in Cairo, and new cities, as you've mentioned, Doctor. What is the social impact of such a decision, and not just the economic impact of it?
Well, hopefully the social impact would be felt by the lowest income people, in our economy. But not right away, right? These things take time. Building cities is not the easiest thing, right, to do.
Yes.
In a pandemic like we're living right now, it's not easy to do that. However, we're doing it. And obviously why people built in the slums? Because there were no options, right?
Yes.
Why we lost the delta of the Nile? We lost the delta of the Nile because the government was sleeping for 50 years. 50 years. Of course, if you're the government and you're not giving me options, I'm just going to build on the land that I'm living and cultivating. And that destroyed the delta to a large extent. So the government finally, in recent years decided, well, enough is enough. And now what we're going to do is give these people alternatives. You can't live in slums. You're an Egyptian, you're a citizen of a country, of a great country. So what we do is we have rules and have building permits, we have building rules, and we have new cities that follow those rules. And you will have a chance to buy a property or lease a property in those cities and save the land that you have for whatever cultivation or whatever purpose they have for.
We do have a relatively new House of Representatives, a relatively new Senate here in Egypt. How do you see the future of legislation in Egypt in the upcoming 4 or 5 years?
I think this Parliament and the Senate as well, they really have a very heavy duty. There are a lot of things legislative-wise and legal-wise must be changed and need to be tackled and not very popular. But they need to be done in a very smart way, right? You can't just bring the change all of a sudden. I think the government and the Parliament needs to, as you said, bring awareness first. Find out what is the most urgent problem that people really suffer from, and to try to ease those problems. And then, as an incentive for the government doing this, the people can be patient and withstand some of those the negative impacts that may happen because of the changes. Any change will have positive and negative impact. It can't just happen, all positively. But then, you pay a price, right, to get a value. So people need to understand that. You pay something and you will get the benefit right away. Within a year, 2 years, whatever, you will get the benefit of that. So there are a lot of things economic-wise that must be updated, must be changed. The most difficult and most urgent was the notary public law. Very old law, doesn't represent at all the status of the Egyptian real estate market at all. We've seen other countries, as I said, Brazil, which have benefited a lot from making sure that all properties are registered, making it easy for people to register, and stopping the real estate waste. So I think that's a very important step. Building, violations as well.
Yes.
They need to be addressed, and also we need to put an end to the so basically the violations taking place over the delta. We need to make sure that this stops. We need to save our cultivation land. You know, we have no option but to do that. You've seen now the problem with water, so we cannot afford really to leave this very valuable part of Egypt and to try to replace it with the desert. I mean, obviously, you know, that's a much easier way to save our land.
So, building violations and the real estate registry law in this field, in the field of real estate and properties, how do you see the next step? What is the next step that the cabinet will be tackling?
I think one of the things that was also relating to housing, unfortunately, it's everything, is the housing and the housing rent law.
The old one.
The old one, yes. That has been now going in discussions for a long time.
How could this be solved?
It's very complicated because, you know, when you try to solve it one way, you upset some, you know...
it's like both camps are right.
Exactly. Some of the individuals who have, you know, who own something, and you have on the other hand, those who have been living in a rented property for very cheaply for a very long period of time. You're right.
Yes.
So, you know, and you can't say that, you know, because they were, that these were the laws. They were not violating any laws, so you can't really punish them or right now say, you know, well, I'm going to penalize you by taking those properties from you. So there has to be a balance. I think that to keep a balance, give them maybe a longer period of time to stay in at the same rent or at, you know, maybe relatively higher rent, and then give them warning, give them an alternative. Right, if you leave this property for the owner, then maybe you get a discount in one of the properties in the new cities. The government needs to somehow come with a magical formula to try to get a balance between landlords and lessees. You can't tenants. Cannot be find themselves out in the street in one day. Right, you need to give them time. But there is a solution for that, and we can't leave the problem forever. And now it's been like in discussion for many, many years. Every time you try to issue a modification, people, you know, make debates about it, and then you stop.
Yes, and hopefully the solution, the magical solution, as you mentioned, Doctor, will be found in the near future. Dr. Waleed Hegazy, the legal expert, thank you very much for being with us tonight on the Daily Debate.
Thank you.
And this brings us to the end of the Daily Debate for tonight. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.